Is it the most pathetic thing we've watched?
Yes.
It might be the worst thing we've ever watched.
Yeah.
It's if that's not true, it's definitely up there.
Well, it's like, we can say, you can't say that because you say that about everything. But I think the three of us can, put it together and just say this is
It has some
legitimate.
weight when we say that.
Right.
Is it the worst thing everyone's ever seen? Because it is for me. First of all, this was the worst movie I've ever seen. It was so fucking boring. Well, that was the worst film I've ever seen.
You always say that? I think it's finally true.
Ever since we reviewed Jeff, He Who Lives at Home, the worst fucking movie ever made. And we should really mention that this is the worst comedy film ever made. Oh, is there anything else to say about Kitten Commotion? It's possibly the worst thing I've ever seen. I have to say though, this was probably the worst Spielberg movie I've ever seen. Our next film is one of the worst films I've ever seen. May have been the worst movie I have ever seen in my whole life.
No, it's not the worst in my whole life. It's bad though. Things. How could you ever say that after seeing Things?
So Things is probably one of the worst movies ever made. Would you agree?
I would remove probably.
Okay.
Now is the time of the night when we vote American Flatulators as the worst film ever made. This was the worst movie that we've ever seen. I'll speak for all of us. Ghostbusters 2016 is quite possibly the worst film ever made. Boy, this one is maybe one of the worst things on the show.
It's one of the worst things we've ever watched.
That was the fucking most offensively stupid movie I've ever seen.
Is this, and I know we say this a lot, but with no exaggeration, is this the worst movie that we've ever watched?
Well, it got to the point that we are concerned that
The disgusting filth
Tasteless
at the bottom of a
non-nudity.
sewer. Yeah, it was the worst thing I've ever seen.
I think
It was maybe the worst thing we've ever watched.
Yeah.
While it is the worst movie, possibly the worst movie ever made, on almost every level, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
That's not true.
It might be. Maybe the worst film I've ever seen. I know I've said that, and it's
You
not.
say that a lot, and I'm not going to disagree with you in this case.
It gets a gold medal when compared to Willy's Wonderland, which may have been the worst thing I've ever seen. Well, Jay, I thought this movie sucked. It may have been the worst movie I've ever seen. My Valentine, which may be the worst thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Probably the worst film I've seen this summer. Maybe not the whole year, possibly the whole year. Because this movie, I said after we watched it, I said it was the worst thing I've ever seen. And I know that I say that a lot, but I may have meant it this time. This is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Because it's the worst thing.
And literally, it's the worst thing I've ever seen in my whole life.
you're going to vote for it, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.